Hey, Grace Church, my name is Sears. I'm the lead pastor here, and I want to say thank you very much for being a part of our services this weekend. I'm opening up by talking about movies, some of our favorite movies that we've ever seen, and they have a lot of things in common, but one of the things that they have in common is that it's usually about a hero and a group of friends that help that hero accomplish some kind of major task or some type of an objective. I'm thinking of like the best movie of all time, and that would be Goonies. Am I right? Goonies, the greatest piece of cinematography ever put together. Goonies, phenomenal movie. And when you watch the show Goonies now we would watch it on Amazon. That was actually the very first movie I ever saw in a theater. It was a long time ago. It was in black and white when I was a kid. Thankfully, they've colorized it. That's not true, but that was the first movie I ever saw in the theater. And I remember thinking, like, Sean Astin and all those actors, Corey Haim, those guys are actually, like, I'm the same age as those guys. And so when that movie came out, I was just thinking, like, how did I not get in that movie? Like, I want to be a Goonie. I want to be friend. Like, Goonies never say die. Like, Goonies never say never. Goonies always stick together. Like, that's what I wanted. I wanted my crew. That's what I wanted. The problem was if I had a crew like that, I'd have been Chunk is who I would have been probably. And had to do the truffle shuffle because I was always that chubby kid. So then I probably would have not wanted to be a Goonie at that point. But there's other movies like Sandlot. How many guys like Sandlot? Anybody like Sandlot? That's a good show. Not as good as Goonies, but it's like my son's version of Goonies, right? It's about that kid, what's his name? Something the Jet or whatever, right? And then the other kid who becomes like the announcer. And like it's this crew of friends who grew up together. And then Squints, remember he makes out with the hot lifeguard. Remember that? My son was like, dang it, why couldn't I make out with that hot lifeguard? Because like you're 9, stop it. Oh, growing up too fast. Anyway, but there's TV shows like that are about a group of friends, and we see ourselves in those TV shows like Friends. Anyone? Friends? Like you probably know which one of the friends you're most like, right? And I'm sorry, but you're Ross, right? Nobody wants to be Ross. You want to be Chandler, right? And some of you guys are like Joey, and you need to settle down, right? So, dude, seriously, settle down. I don't know, Rachel, what's her name? I know in real life her name is Rachel. I don't remember what her name is in the TV show. But like even The Office, you know which one that you most identify with. But these are TV shows that resonate with us because they're people who live in community with other people, and we find ourselves wanting to be in that. Like we want to show up and have these kind of jokey relationships with the people that we work with, and to have these close friendships that we come home to. The problem is that we're not as a culture very good at these relationships. Now, we just came out of a series on relationships where we opened up about, and we talked about the relationships God intends us to have with our family. Then we talked about the relationships that God intends for us to have with His family, those who have turned from sin to begin following Jesus together in their local church. Then instead of, in that week 3, we talked about, do we want to talk about our relationship with our friends? And we said, yeah, that's what we'll talk about in the 3rd week. But as we started talking about that, we said, listen, I think we're going to need to spend more time unpacking this one. Let's pull friends out of that series, and let's do a whole separate series just on that. And then we'll talk about those people that are in our lives that we overlook and that we intentionally don't allow to become friends. So that's what we talked about in that 3rd week. And then last week, Pastor Stephen taught us about our relationship with God and how our relationship with God is supposed to influence every other relationship in our life. Cigna Healthcare funded a study, research here in our country that found that half of all Americans say that they frequently or all the time feel lonely. Half of us. It's 48%. 48% of us feel alone most of the time. It's a little bit higher. 46% was the total. 46% reported frequently or all the time feeling alone. With 18 to 22-year-olds, it's 48.3%. With millennials, 23 to 37-year-olds, it's 45%, which is the same as Gen Xers. That's the 38 to 51. And I'm at the top of that one I didn't know about until this study. And then 38% of boomers. So you can say, hey, boomer, all you want. But the one thing they've got an edge on the rest of us is they've got healthier relationships is what they do have. According to a study done in the UK, loneliness is the number one fear of all millennials. They would rather have cancer than be alone. Loneliness, according to the government website, HRSA, which is the Health Resources and Services Administration website, loneliness is as damaging to your health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Poor social relationships are associated with a 29% increased risk of coronary heart disease. And poor social relationships are associated with 32% higher risk of stroke. Isn't that crazy? Like we can't live without friends, and dang it, with the friends I got, I don't want to live with them. Some of us are in that weird spot. Like we want healthy relationships. We want great friends. And if I were to ask you, who's your best friend? Some of us would just claim the guy we were best friends with back in high school. But truthfully, how involved is that dude still in your life? Like we're more nostalgic about our friendships than we are actually healthy in our friendships. Conversely, though, healthy friendships reduce the risk of mortality and developing certain diseases, and actually speed the recovery of those who fall seriously ill. Another poll says 82% of Americans admit that finding a good friend is incredibly difficult. That's probably us, right? Finding a good friend. The average American adult has not made a new friendship. Not that you haven't met a new person. You haven't made a new friend in the last 5 years. Crazy. We want close friends, but it's hard. It requires things that we don't have. Time, right? Vulnerability, humility, transparency, proximity, closeness, right? These are things that we, for whatever reason, we resist. Listen to what King Solomon says about being successful in every other area of your life but relationships. In Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verse 8, he said this: "This is the case of a man who is all alone, without a child or a brother, yet who works hard to gain as much wealth as he can, but then asks himself, who am I working for? Why am I giving up so much pleasure now?" He says this is all meaningless, and it's depressing. Because that's what we do. In the absence of close and healthy relationships, we throw ourselves into other things that preoccupy us and give us a sense of accomplishment, like making money. Nothing wrong with making money. I'm just saying some of us have replaced healthy relationships with the accumulation of wealth or the pursuit of physical fitness, which is why I don't work out. I want to have healthy relationships. So the teaching here is to help you become more careful with the friends that you already have and more intentional about the friendships you should have. Because the Bible teaches us that our friends can help us become the people that God always intended us to become. And our friends can also keep us from becoming the people God always intended us to become. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do. I'm going to ask you to take notes on this. Here's why. because I think this particular series, this particular teaching this weekend is going to be one of those things that we're going to look at and we're going to say, yes, I need that. Yes, I need that. But it's going to require significant rearrangement of your priorities in your life that are going to be a lot. It would be easier for you to walk out of the teaching today making no significant changes at all. But I believe that this could potentially be the one thing holding most of us back from becoming the person God intends us to be. Tim Ferriss is only the most recent business and leadership guru to say this. But he said, and Jim Rohn said it, and if you just Google this phrase, you'll find probably 10 or 15, like whoever you read most, like John Maxwell or whoever Jim Collins may have even said it too. But you become the average of your 5 closest friends. And when you consider your 5 closest friends, some of us would go, I think I need to increase my average. Am I right? Some of us need to raise our average. I don't have 5 close friends. I've got 2. I've got 2 best friends. I'm going to show you a picture of Danny Crawford. This is Danny, and these are his kids, and that's not all of them. That's true. That is 10. He's missing 1. He has 11 kids because he and his wife don't have cable. There are other things to do after dinner. They have 11 kids. What the heck? Am I right? Hello. No twins, and no twins, and none adopted. So his wife is a saint, is what she is. She's Saint Kim, is what she is. And this is my other best friend. His name is Daniel Garcia. He goes by Paco. But that's Paco right there. And we have been friends since this long. I'll show you this next picture. Yeah. Oh, shut up. Here's the thing. In my head, I still look exactly like that. Right? And then you laugh because you're jerks. So this is at their graduation. I graduated college in 92. They graduated in 93. That's them together. So obviously that's Paco on the right. That's Danny Crawford on the left. We've been friends since our freshman year of college. And I know that it's rare that the friends you make at 18 are still your best friends when you're 50. But there's a few things that we accidentally or unintentionally, or I can say by the sovereign grace of God, have done right along the way. And the neat thing about all 3 of us, and I'm going to say this because I don't want to take credit that isn't due to me. All 3 of us have godly fathers. Now, I've only met Paco's dad once, doesn't speak English. So it was just a hey, and that was about it. I speak more Spanish now than I did then. That's because my daughter-in-law's whole family is Spanish, so I'm learning Spanish for their side. Entiendo escuchar más español por la familia de ella. So, hello. There you go. That's my Spanish. Pero comprendo solamente malas palabras. So that's what I just said there is, but really all I really understand is how to cuss you out. That's the truth. Isn't that true? That's all we remember about other languages is how to cuss them out. But Danny Crawford has a godly father. Paco has a godly father. And so I think that there are inherited blessings. Like we learned from good men how to be good men, and that doesn't mean that we were never bad. And I'll also say this: if you did not have a godly father, it doesn't mean that you're going to have to turn out like your dad either. But I'll tell you this: if you make the same decisions your dad made, you will become exactly like him. So if you want to become a better man, dang it, you're going to have to start making better decisions. Are you with me? And that's what this series is about. Making better decisions. All 3 of us are still married to our first wives. except for me, but that's another story. I'm just kidding. You guys are like, wait, what? All of us are still following Jesus. All of us are still providing for our families. And because all of us still get in each other's faces. All of us still make sure that none of us are walking alone. All three of us are still vulnerable and transparent with each other. Those are the two guys that they could ask me any single question in the world, and I would give them a 100% honest answer. That's not to say that there aren't some questions I hope they don't ask. But they do. That's the thing. I can count on these guys to ask me the questions that I don't want people to ask. And there are times in my life where I have done right, not because it was in me to do right, but because I knew they were going to ask me if I had done right. And I did not want to tell them that I hadn't. So they have at certain parts of my life when I have not been intrinsically motivated to stay on the straight and narrow, they have become my extrinsic motivation to stay on that same path. You need that. I have had to have that. I am 100% convinced that I would not still be married to Billie Jane. And I probably would not still, well, I'll say this, I would not be in ministry. I don't know. Because she's a rock star. So if I'd have done something, she'd have just killed me is all. I just wouldn't be alive right now. That's true. And then after I was dead, her mom would kill me. And then after I was dead again, then my dad would kill me. That's how that would go. I'm just saying I would not be who I am without Danny and Paco. Without Danny and Paco. Here's why all this matters. Ecclesiastes chapter 4 says this. Two are better than one. You having another good friend is you better than not having a good friend. You're a better you with a good friend. Two is better than one. You can't do this on your own without going to some really bad places in here. And some of you know from experience what that path looks like. And it wasn't good. It wasn't. Two are better off than one, for they can help each other succeed. If one person falls, the other person can reach out and help. But someone who falls alone is in real trouble. Danny Crawford started a church in Kansas City. And it went great for a few years. And then some, I don't know if they're Christians or not, they said they were, came in and caused problems. And it was just really, his church went through a really bad time. And Danny resigned. So I drove up to Kansas City, which is where he's at. And then we met at a Shoney's. I don't know if you know what a Shoney's is, but if you've ever heard of a Big Boys, Google it if you haven't. It's just a hamburger place. And I don't know why I remember that it was at a Shoney's, but it was at a Shoney's, and we're in the lobby or the little waiting area of the restaurant and waiting to be seated. And Danny's got his elbows on his knees and his head in his hands, and he's just bawling. And he says, I quit. I will never go into ministry ever again. I'm done being a pastor. I don't want it. Now, Danny's a pastor. Paco's not. Paco is a salesman down in Waco, Texas, and I think he's doing well based on the frequency of the times he flies to Kansas City to go watch those stupid freaking Kansas City Chiefs. I think he's doing all right. He's a huge Chiefs fan. So when they won the Super Bowl this last year, he showed a picture of him and all of his family wearing Kansas City Chiefs sweatshirts back when his daughters, who are now graduates from Baylor, back when they were little bitty girls. So just to prove that he started the bandwagon is, I think, the reason what that was all about. But so it's not that all my friends are just pastors. So one is, one isn't. But I know Danny. I know Danny. So even when Danny was forgetting who he was, he had somebody who knew who he was. Right? So Danny's pastoring a church now in Greenville. He's an assistant pastor of a church in Greenville, Texas. And I'm not the reason why he's still a pastor. God is the reason why he's a pastor. And it was God who made sure to move in Danny's heart. So when Danny felt like walking away from everything, he reached out to a friend who could keep him from doing that. You know what I mean? You need that friend. You need that friend. You need that friend, not that's just going to tell you everything you want to hear, but he's going to tell you everything you need to hear. And some of you, the biggest problem is you've got the wrong people sitting closest to you. And it's not that those who don't share your faith or those who don't share your values should not be your friends. That's not what I'm saying at all. That's not even the life that Jesus modeled for us. Jesus was called the friend of tax collectors, traitors, sinners, and drunkards. While never doing any of those things, Jesus intentionally went out of his way to make room for those people to be a regular part of his life. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I am saying is that out of all of Jesus' friends, he had two or three. He actually had three that he kept really close: Peter, James, and John. So it's awesome for you to have friends that don't share your value, that don't believe what you believe. But what I'm saying is that you need some people who are whispering in your ear who do share your faith, who do share your values. Because some of you honestly are being told by your best friends to leave her, and you shouldn't. Being told to leave them, and you shouldn't. But you're about to, because you got nobody else saying nothing else to you. That's why we need each other. Verse 11 of Ecclesiastes chapter 4 says this: likewise, two people lying close together can keep each other warm, but how can one be warm alone? A person standing alone can be attacked and defeated, but two can stand back to back and conquer. Three are even better than two, for a triple braided cord is not easily broken. So not only are you going to fall and you need somebody to pick you up, you're going to be attacked. I'm not talking about like that. My first thought was like ninjas going to attack you in the dark. I don't mean that, but things bad are going to happen to you. And it's not that you're going to fall, you're going to give up, but dang it, you're going to feel like you're getting it from everywhere, from all around you. And you got nobody keeping you going. And that's why you need two, not just one. You've got to have someone strong who has your back. We all want this, but it comes at a price. But even the hardest parts of a great friendship are better than not having that friendship at all. Because in a great friendship, you're going to be able to be honest. You're going to be able to be vulnerable, and you're going to be able to trust someone enough that they're going to call you out on your mess and help you clean up that mess. So this brings me to the first of only 2 points of the teaching, and that is this. Number one is this: it takes courage to build extraordinary friendships. It takes courage. Because this kind of friendship is going to require certain things of you that are going to cost you. Namely, vulnerability. You're going to have to be vulnerable. It means that you're going to have to open up and give somebody access to the parts of your life that you don't show and shouldn't show everyone. I don't share all my junk with everybody. That's completely inappropriate. But there's somebody who needs to know what my junk is. Somebody's got to know what Sean struggles with most. Because there is a sin, the Bible says, that so easily kicks your butt. And I need somebody to know what that sin is, because there are going to be times in my life where that sin has got me on the ropes. And I'm down, and Satan's over there in the corner going, 6, 7. And I need Danny Crawford or Paco in the corner smacking the mat, saying, get up. Don't leave her. Don't. You make your marriage right. Quit that job if it's robbing you of your time with your kids. They're more important. I need somebody in my corner smacking the mat. Right? You've got to have that. Sorry, I'm actually thinking of things that I don't want to share with you. Because it's none of your business. Right? But man, these things are personal and they hurt. And they would have already kicked my tail had I not had a Danny and a Paco. Who do you have like that? Right now, what's his name? What's her name? We keep everyone up on the surface though, right? Because it costs too much. It's too, I don't know, what is it? Raw? Uncomfortable. And the idea of letting somebody that close, it makes us feel a certain amount of what? Fear? Shame maybe? Embarrassment? Which is exactly what Adam and Eve felt the very first time they had ever sinned against God and against each other. So they didn't have this huge history of doing wrong, but the very first time they ever did wrong, they ran away from each other and hid in shame. Not only from the God who could forgive them for what they had done, but from the other person, their partner, who could have helped them through what they had done. And we still do the exact same thing. Which brings me to the second thing, the second point of the teaching. Number one, it's going to take courage to have extraordinary friendships. Number two, it's going to take time to build extraordinary friendships. It doesn't happen overnight. Just like any important relationship in your life, you have to invest in it. I think that's why some of the closest friendships that we have are the people that we work with. Because the people that we work with are the ones that we spend the most what? Time with. It's just that not always the people we work with are the people who should have the most access to us and the decisions that we make. The danger in this, living our lives closest to the people who don't share our faith, is that we end up living in spiritual isolation. There's a guy in our church, I have in my notes to use his first name, but I'm not. Because I don't know if you're in this service. And I would hate for you to think it's you, but bro, it's you. And you've got all kinds of people skills. All kinds of talent. All kinds of talent. Everything you touch turns to gold. You're charismatic. Everybody likes you. But you've made sure no one can call you out. And you are drifting, and you are drifting, and you are drifting, and you are drifting. And dude, I'm telling you, generically, because you have not given me permission to say this to you specifically, that you're going to lose everything. You're going to lose it all. All of it. How many of us know somebody like that? How many of us lived that? How many of us are about to do that a second time? A third time? A fourth time? Bro, you have got to have somebody in your corner who knows Jesus. Who knows Jesus. Who knows what you need to know. Not what you already know. Listen to what Solomon says, though, about the kind of time that this is going to take. It's a lifetime type of a thing. Proverbs chapter 27, verse 10. Never abandon a friend. Never. Never abandon a friend. Either yours or your father's. This is like generational things. These are like life. These are your Dannies and your Pacos. Because when disaster strikes, you won't have to go ask your brother for assistance. Why won't you? Because they'll already be there. It's better to go to a neighbor than to a brother who lives far away. Why? Because the neighbor is the person you've already invested in. If you wait until you're on the mat to find somebody to get into your corner, it's too late. You're done. You need this friend now, because of what you'll need from them later. You need to be this kind of friend now because of what they will need from you later. You're going to have to find one or two other people, if you're a Christian, a follower of Jesus, who are also following after the ways of Jesus, and start investing in those friendships in small ways now so that this relationship can grow to something more meaningful later. So what I do is I make little drips, little deposits into all of the relationships around me. Whenever I'm thinking about it, I do. I don't always do this. I'm not like a generous person to everybody all the time. I struggle with selfishness and self-centeredness just like every other person who's here at Grace Church this week, and I struggle like you do. But the best version of me, the one that's driven or prompted or directed by God's Holy Spirit living in me, moves me to remember to deposit into this one, because I don't know which one of those is a love connection. I don't know. Who my best friend? Think about your best friend, the one that you would say is your best friend. The very first time you met them, you didn't know that they were going to be the best person, the best man in your wedding, or your maid of honor, or the one that you would be roommates with your freshman year of college. Like you didn't know that then. But it takes time. You put in the time now, and you won't have to go out of your way and find people later. Why does this matter? Because your closest friends shape who you become. Who are your 2 or 3 closest friends? Answer that question. Who are your 2 or 3 closest friends? And here's the key question. If you became more like them, would you be drawn closer to God or pulled farther away from Him? That's the question. Who are your 2 or 3 closest friends? And if you became more like them, would that spiritually benefit you or hurt you? God takes this so seriously that He told the disciples they weren't allowed to go out on their own. He sent them out 2 by 2. And He tells us in the Bible to be careful of those who would negatively influence our ability to follow after Him, even those who are other Christians. 2 Thessalonians chapter 3, verse 6 says this, "And now, dear brothers and sisters, we give you this command in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. Stay away from all Christians who live lazy lives and don't follow the traditions that we received." It's not that I can't be friends with those who are not Christians. It's that I'm wise with those who have the most access to me. So this series isn't about replacing your friends. It's about being more intentional with your friends. Proverbs chapter 27, verse 1 says this, "As the iron sharpens the iron, so a friend sharpens a friend." So here's my question. Who sharpens you? Which one of your closest friends sharpens you? If you're married, what godly couple sharpens your marriage? Who are your godly couple friends? If you ain't got them, I promise you're going to need them. Because listen, when you're a jerk to your wife and your wife goes off to talk to somebody about whether or not she should stay with your sorry butt, you want her talking to somebody who's going to say yes. He's a moron, but he's your moron. Right? You want that? I promise you want that. Who's your godly couple friends? If you're single, who's your godly single friends? Who are they? If you're in high school, what godly Christian friends can you leave the party with when you shouldn't stay at the party anymore? What friend has permission to say to you the hard things? Proverbs chapter 27, verse 5 through 6, this is the last verse we're reading, says this, "An open rebuke is better than hidden love. Wounds from a sincere friend are better than many kisses from an enemy." Let me say it this way. Wounds from a godly friend are better than compliments from those who don't follow Jesus. You and I need to find the friend that sharpens us, not just the friend that keeps me company. Who's the friend that helps push you? The friend that helps you grow in your faith. The friend that looks out for your marriage. The friend that makes sure you don't burn out, drop out, give up, or walk away. Not every one of my friends can be this. But dang it, some friend has to be. So can I ask how you're doing? Who has permission? Who has the access to the personal part of you? Who? Some of you, no one does. No one does. And that's why you're not doing well. Who is close enough to see when you're discouraged, when you're struggling, and feels close enough to you to reach out and to initiate a conversation with you? Who feels that they have permission to tell you to take a break, to get counseling? Who is comfortable enough, or who are you most comfortable with, to ask you on the spot if they can pray with you or for you? Who are you growing with as a man? Who are you growing with as a husband, as a son, as a brother, as a Christian? Who are you growing with as a woman, as a wife, as a mom, as a daughter, as a Christian? Are you willing to be that for one or two people, and do you have that with one or two people? I'm asking you to ask God for that person. And I'm asking you to become that person for somebody else, and it's going to take two things: courage and time, and a willingness to reprioritize your life around that. In this series, we're going to ask you to start meeting with one or two friends on a regular basis that are committed to doing this with you. Friends that are committed to honesty and vulnerability. A friend who is committed to helping you and looking out for you. We're going to ask you to start meeting with a friend that will challenge you to grow as a man of God, as a woman of God. We're going to ask you to find a friend who will watch your back and keep you going when you feel like quitting. And I'm going to ask you to ask God to give you the courage to seek that out now. So if you would, bow your head with me. God, it is not good that we should be alone. It was the first thing that you ever said after creation that you said was not good, was that we would be in isolation. And God, it almost seems like our entire lives are set up to foster independence and isolation. And this is ruining us. We're unhealthy. We are unhealthy people. We go to dark places too quickly. We become too settled in destructive patterns and behaviors. God, we need other people in our lives. We're just intimidated by the idea of this. So I'm asking you to show us in our lives who that person could be. We don't run all the way to that spot. We don't go from 0 to 10 in a conversation, but God, it takes time. Help us to be willing to go from 0 to 1 with a few people around us. Help us to seek out opportunities to make friends with others who are followers of Jesus within this church family. Help us to put ourselves in the way of somebody else. Help us to be willing to go out of our way and to be inconvenienced, to be a blessing to other people. Help us to be the kind of friend to other people that we are asking other people to be for us. God, help us to become more self-aware. Help us to see the brokenness in our own hearts, and help us to seek out others to walk with us through that brokenness. Help us to find those people. Help us to be those kind of people. That's our prayer. We ask this in the name of Jesus, and we all say together, amen.